My friend. Freddy is gay and has been with his boyfriend James for about 10 years. They had to fight a lot to be together. In addition to being estranged from both families, they work in a very manly, meaning homophobic field, and had endured all kinds of career setbacks, along with a very hostile environment on a daily basis. A few years ago, their company went through a high-level management change and they finally had some relief. James got promoted and proposed to Freddy. Now, after all they have been through, they planned a dream wedding and a big party. Not in number of people, as I said they are. No contact with family, and obviously have no work friends, but in extravaganza. It took more than 1 year of intense planning. A few months ago, to everyone's surprise, Freddy's mom contacted him for the first time in almost a decade. She had heard about the wedding, no idea how, and wanted to make amends. To make it short, she was incredibly sorry for how she treated him, that she knew better nowadays, and asked if she could be part of this important event in his life. She even begged him to let her pay for the whole thing. His parents are quite wealthy, as a very big apology. Freddy was over the moon. It looked like everything was falling in place in his life. When he told me about it, I felt uneasy, but brushed it off, crediting it to my unforgiving nature and previous hate of her. I know him for more than 17 years, and even before he came out, she was already what any Satan offspring aspires to be, and mostly because it was none of my business. James also expressed concerns about her sudden generosity, but had to back off because Freddy was so happy having his mom back in his life that James felt he didn't have the right to take that away from him. Over the next year, my mother-in-law made the wedding her top priority in life. She intermediated every transaction, contacted the suppliers back and forth, and basically organized the whole thing, plus signed all the checks. Everyone was quite amused that things were going so well, and I almost believed she was a human being for a change. We should all know better. Flash forward to today, 10 days before the big day, Freddy receives a call from one of the suppliers, saying mother-in-law was out of reach, and if Freddy had another number they could call. Sure, but maybe he could help. Oh, it's nothing much, just an issue with the repayment. Wait, what repayment? The partial repayment on the cancellation. Say what again? Freddy hung up, tried to call mother-in-law with no luck, then called James, who being the smart man he is, immediately reached out to all the suppliers. You guessed right, she canceled the whole thing, including the very exclusive almost a year reservation venue. She took all the matter in her hands to make sure she could sneakily cancel it, since she signed all the contracts to let them find out only at the wedding day. Again, she spent thousands of dollars, even with the repayments she may have got, so she could undo it at the last minute and make sure the wedding wasn't happening. Freddy just called me in tears. I have never hated anyone so hard in my life, and I'm a pretty hateful puss. How much of a sociopath do you have to be to do that? To go this far only to destroy their only son's happiness? I can't believe it. But joke's on her. We're assembling all the friends tonight to see how we can solve this, because this wedding is going to happen, even if I have to officiate it myself. Edit. I just got out of the gathering and wanted to give you guys some updates, since a lot of you are being so supportive and helpful, but I can't reply individually now because I have a humongous number of things to take care of as soon as possible. Thank you so much to all the people offering all kinds of help here and by private message. Unfortunately, I'm several countries and probably an ocean away from most of you. And even if it was not the case, I can't share info that lead to identification in any possible way. I know decent human beings can only be supportive of my friends, but in the narrow-minded, dark age shithole we live, a fairly good amount of people will side with mother-in-law for have prevented sin. Someone said in the comments that she must belong to a big old church, and you couldn't be more right and might feel inspired to take some action. And of course, mother-in-law cannot know in any circumstance what we are about to do. But all these comments are giving me incredible energy, and I'll need a lot of that in the following days, so thanks again, you guys. First thing tomorrow is to call all the venues and try to get them back on the game. That might be harder than we thought. since apparently mother-in-law has been canceling everything for weeks, all while pretending she was in contact with the suppliers. Honestly, Meryl Streep have nothing on that woman. Today's call was just an incredibly lucky strike. See, mother-in-law, God loves the queers, you two-faced psychotic satanic witch. Freddy was not at the reunion today. James said he had an anxiety attack or something similar and had to be sedated. Of all the awful stuff these two had to deal with in the course of their life, this is by far the hardest, most heartbreaking one. I'm worried that even if we pull off the wedding, that woman will crush him beyond repair. But fear nothing, beloved internet. We'll be marrying those bastards so hard, they have no idea. We reunited with a very solid group of people who are highly committed to making this happen. The thing about having almost everyone around against you is that those who are by your side are really by your side. I'll update you guys as soon as possible. Edit. Some people are suggesting going to the media for support or telling their story to get sympathy. Unfortunately, that won't fly where I live. As I said, most people are more likely to side with mother-in-law. The hate is strong with these people. Update. Hey guys, first of all, thanks to everyone who offered help and support. I couldn't take time to reply you all, but I was very moved by your generosity. So yes, the wedding happened on Friday, and I still can't wrap my head around it. I'll tell everything, and it will be long, so bear with me. Me and another friend took some days off work to focus solely on the event. We were in charge of bribing and bullying all the vendors to cancel the cancellation, Inception style. It took us 2 days to reach them all. Do you guys have any idea how many details are involved in a wedding? Honestly, if I ever get married, it'll be at McDonald's. Anyway, as a lot of you predicted, most of them were happy to oblige, and the group organized to do it yourself, what was left. We also had to make a few changes in the original plans due to budget restriction. To my surprise, the main concern got solved quickly, which was the location. As we expected, it was already booked, but Freddy and James's boss was sent from above like an angel on suits and immediately offered his house to host the wedding. And guys, why aren't we all CEOs? That was a damn fairy tale mansion. I completely changed my mind about McDonald's wedding. I also ended up helping with some flower ornaments, and they turned out magnificent. I have real talent, guys. At the end, the whole place looked like a perfect dream, and I'm even better than the original idea. Then the food became the main concern. The grooms, especially Freddy, are passionate foodies, and the meals were supposed to be the star of the event. It's where they put most planning, effort, and love. And money, off. The original caterer refused to reconsider the wedding because the menu was unique and needed several imported ingredients, which they claimed to be unable to get in such short notice. But we were fully committed to making it as close of their dream as possible. We wanted to show Freddy that for that one person going as far as she could to make him miserable, there were dozens going even further to make him happy. So pretty much everyone went above and beyond to make that dinner happen, including an angel from that caterer company who went behind their boss's back and handed us the whole dinner planning. I don't know the details. I was on flower duty, but I heard people contacted friends overseas and had them buying ingredients locally, then shipping it to our country on top priority for a small fortune. And they damn nailed it. The dinner was so sublime it almost overshadowed my flower ornaments. I mean, the grooms. Finally, the party happened, and it was completely over the top. Not as fancy as initially planned, but with an energy I've never experienced before. I think because every single person there got involved on some level to make the party happen, and because their wedding meant a victory over so many obstacles for more than 10 years, and because queer people know how to celebrate like nobody else. You know how every graduation party is fun, but when it's your own, it is so cathartic because you know how much it took you to get there. Freddy and James were so happy and so grateful and emotional. They kept thanking everybody, and there was so much love in that evening that we all kind of forgot the wedding was supposed to be anything different from what it was. And then at the end of the night, guys, oh my ghost, I'm already tearing up. Okay, so as you can imagine, even with all the do-it-yourself, this wedding was expensive af. Because mother-in-law was paying, Their plans were quite above what they could afford in the first place. Even with our money gifts and their original wedding budget, they still had to relocate their honeymoon budget to make ends meet. It was fine. They would just postpone the honeymoon. But then, their boss announced that both grooms' departments chipped in to gift them their honeymoon as originally intended. Guys, you must remember my original post where I stated how much they suffered for years at their workplace, and how archaic and homophobic the place I live is. For example, the company's human resource, several years ago, refused to register their relationship disclaimer because that's not what a real couple is, and was fully supported by corporate. And now their peers did not only acknowledge their love as much as gifted them their honeymoon. James, who has been in the company longer and suffered greater, cried so hard he couldn't even say thanks. He just stayed there sobbing for solid 10 minutes. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So maybe their coworkers are not all closed-minded bigots, as we assumed. As a friend of ours said, sometimes we get so defensive due to past trauma that we don't give people a chance to be good. We just assume they will hurt us, as everyone else always did, and we cut them off to avoid it. Anyway, the grooms already plan on offering a thanks dinner when they get back from their trip. Finally, about Freddy and my mother-in-law. Freddy confessed to me that not even in his wildest dreams he could plan a better wedding, and that he never felt so loved. But that a mother hurts you in a place that nobody else can reach, only himself with a lot of counseling and therapy. Nevertheless, all that love at least cleared his mind and made him believe that he can overcome the dark place he's right now, knowing that he'll have people there for him. He also made me promise to not take any action to get back at mother-in-law, because he knows me too, and I was already Googling cheaper ways to mummify people alive. He said any contact with her would only add more to the pain, and he can't take even an ounce more than what he's already enduring. Another friend pointed out that she is not your regular crazy, hateful old lady. Unprovoked, she pulled a long, very expensive, cruel stunt. There's no way of knowing how far she can go on vendetta mode, and she clearly have the means and the will to be dangerous. So, we are not poking that church bear. It'd give us a momentary sense of accomplishment, but would hurt my friend and maybe even put them at risk. The best revenge is for them to be safe and happy and go full no contact with that lady. Now, I'll go rest some more, 'cause at my age, you can't party that hard and not suffer the consequences. Thanks for reading. So, my dad has always been a very show-off person. Announcements about grades, telling everyone how great his daughters are doing, telling off my sister for having a job he can't show off. When he divorced from my mom, he was a good parent for a while, and then he met Eva. Eva is way younger, has had a lot of work done, and used to send him flirty messages when he was still married. They got married very early on in the relationship because they've known each other ages. She told him not to text us too much because we are adults. She checks his phone all the time. She forbade him from seeing us Christmas Day or St. Stephen's Day because he needed to be with his new family, and it would have been disrespectful to her for him to see his ex-wife. And she's overall been an absolute nightmare. And he follows everything she tells him to do. Now I'm getting married and told my dad he's invited, but she's not. I've met the woman once, and I don't like her. Plus I know my father isn't a great person, and he'd be making jabs at my mom about being older than Eva, etc. To make it fair, my mom's boyfriend is also not invited, although he's a sweetheart. My dad's answer to my invite has been to pretend nothing is happening. I sent him a save the date, and he sent me a thumbs up emoji. He hasn't asked me one question about the wedding, not even the venue, even though he told me shortly before meeting Eva that he was looking forward to me and my sister getting married and how excited he was. Myself and my fiancé are different religions and cultures, so everyone's had lots of questions about how we are handling that. Turns out, he hasn't told Eva I'm getting married, and he hasn't told anyone else. So he is just planning to say he has a work trip and come to the wedding. I don't actually think he's going to show up. I think he will say he is going to, and then not show at the last minute. But my sister thinks he'll show up with her and make a whole scene because he told her Eva has just as much right to be there as your mom. Has anyone else dealt with something similar? Do I need a backup to walk me down the aisle? Okay, there's some relevant comments. Somebody said, I just want to point out that your dad is in an abusive relationship. His new wife is cutting him off from his family, his support system, so she can have more control over him. He probably won't be allowed to go to the wedding because she's not invited and probably wouldn't have been allowed to, even if she was. Your dad is an ass all on his own. But I think it's important to recognize that he's still capable of being abused and that it's happening. Original poster replied, yes, they both suck. He has always been a cheater. At least 3 other women during the span of 10 years that we have evidence of. And I think, no evidence. He was cheating on my mom with her, so that's why she's constantly monitoring his phone and not allowing him to leave the house. We told him not to marry her and that her behavior is very concerning, but he seems very blind. Another comment, it sounds like he wants to come, and he knows the only way he is coming without his wife is possible is if he lies about it. He's risking getting caught to be able to go, which speaks volumes about their relationship. But if she checks his phone, you're causing further risk of her finding out if you keep messaging him about the wedding. Stick to phone calls so there's no record. I hope he can make it and there's no drama. Original poster replied, I rang him the first time to tell him I was getting married and then sent him the save the date the second time, asking if he was coming. I didn't know that he hadn't told her at the time. I've no idea why the wife wouldn't let him go to his daughter's wedding though. She's as amazing as he says. On why his mom's boyfriend isn't invited. Far more drama. If I include him and exclude Eva, it's not worth the headache. He will for sure not show up if I invite my mom's boyfriend and not his wife. My mom understands that, even though my dad is not the best dad ever, I still want him there. They aren't together that long, so she's okay with her boyfriend staying at home. Plus then, he can stay with the dogs, and she doesn't have to worry about getting a dog sitter. Most of the family is going as well, so there's nobody to look after them. Let's move to the update. So it turns out my dad ended up telling Eva about my wedding and telling her that she was invited to the wedding to avoid problems. She got herself a dress, booked a hotel, etc. My dad tried to convince me to invite her, but his biggest selling point was that he thought it'd be an amazing time to introduce Eva to my mom and my mom's whole family. Why would he think my mom wants to meet this woman is beyond me, and that she would feel excluded otherwise. He always rubs in our faces his new family, even calling it his new family, keeps canceling every dinner he sets up with my sister due to some emergency involving Eva, or tells us to call Eva mom. Both me and my sister are way beyond the point of calling some randomer mom since we both moved out and he's being ridiculous. He called me again and again trying to convince me, and I said no, explaining that I knew the only reason he wanted to bring his wife to the wedding was to upset mom, and that I wasn't going to let the two of them do that. He makes jabs at my mom every time he's around her about how great his new wife is. I thought the whole thing was over until I sent him some information about the wedding, and I guess he started feeling guilty and told us that he booked the flight for Eva as well. And he booked himself on the same flight as my mom, changed his whole flight plans just so he could be on the flight with her, so that my mom and Eva could still meet, as known as. He could still rub his new wife in her face and try and screw with my mom's head by putting her down and making comparisons, and then Eva would just go off and shop while he was at the ceremony. I'm not sure if this is true, or if he was going to try and bring her to the wedding and hope she didn't get kicked out. I'm trying to convince my mom to change her flight so he can't get inside her head 12 hours before the wedding. I don't know if I should uninvite him. Some relevant comment, somebody said. Oh my ghost, yes. What has your mom done to you that you'd facilitate hurting her? Why does he know so many details of your mom's travel plans? Original poster replied, she is the main reason I haven't uninvited him yet. She keeps saying I need to have a relationship with him and being more understanding. He knows because he asked, and we figured he was trying to avoid being on the same flight. Update. The wedding has happened. It just took a bit of time to update because it's my life, and it all went south, and was too raw to try to write in a coherent way. It still probably won't be super coherent. Spoiler alert, my dad got uninvited. Okay, so update. I asked him to change his flight because he had specifically asked me what flight my mom was on, so he could avoid her. He had said, and my mom was flying with my grandpa, so it would have been quite hard to change their flights to avoid him. My dad told me he'd changed flights and that he'd invent some lie to tell Eva. He also said I was a horrible person for not believing him when he told me that he had not booked the flight out of spite, but he told my mom he'd booked the flight on purpose so that she could meet his new wife. And what reason would there be for wanting them to meet other than to be an a-hole? I thought the whole thing was resolved, and my mom was really adamant that she wanted my dad to be there because I don't have a great relationship with him, and she knew it would have meant the end of the relationship if I uninvited him. Fast forward to 2 days after the conversation, my dad rebooked his flight and sent me a message to say he had changed flights. Then that evening, he called me. I answered the phone, and I could hear someone screaming down the phone. Turns out, Eva got her hands on my dad's phone, read the messages where I asked him to reschedule the flight, and she rang me shouting down the phone that I am unhinged, I am a horrible person, I am effed in the head. She said that I am so weird because I'm in my 30s and I still talk to my parents. This one was really weird, because am I meant to stop at a certain age, and that I'm jealous of the fact that my dad has a new life. I was very calm and said that I'm sorry she's upset, that the issues around the wedding aren't really related to her directly, and that my dad was trying to upset my mom. I also said my mom's partner is not coming either, so it wouldn't be fair to have her there. She started shouting that my mom was a fat old cow, and I lost it. I absolutely lost it. In this whole thing, my mom has said nothing bad about Eva. I told her I never had any issue with her until now, but that she's a crazy puss who is super controlling, and that I was so glad I never invited her. Then I hung up, because by that stage, it had been 2 minutes of her shouting at me, and I didn't feel like there was any point in talking any longer. The whole time this was going on, my dad was in the background saying feebly, "Oh no, don't be mad at her," while she was shouting down the phone at me. Anyway, the next day, my dad calls me and says that Eva was upset because he didn't tell her about changing the flights, and that I was awful for responding to her like that. He also said, "Do you really think this is my fault?" And I said yes, and he said, "Do you really refuse to take any responsibility? None of this would have happened if you had invited her, like I asked you to." And I said, "Does he actually think he has any say in my wedding when he didn't even ask me what type of ceremony I had, never asked to see my dress or get involved in any way, monetary or otherwise?" He asked me if he was still invited, and I said, "Obviously not." He then told me to be careful what I wrote in my messages to him because she was monitoring his phone, and I said, "I'm not speaking to him again, so that won't be a problem." The wedding was good. My mom walked me down the aisle, and there was nobody there to cause drama. So in the end, it all worked out for the best. The whole thing was just a lot more dramatic than I originally thought it would be. We thought he might end up not coming because he was too entangled in his lies, but for sure did not expect the call I got, and it was very close to the wedding when all the drama happened.